the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to episode 159 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Bexon. Today, we're going to be talking with Dan Chaput. Dan, if you guys have listened to the podcast before, has been on. He owns a company called Costa Private Loans. It's a company that offers basically private loan servicing for people looking to purchase property or maybe release some equity for an expansion, to buy another property, or many other reasons. I personally like Dan. He's a straight shooter. Really cares about the clients. There are a lot of, I would say unscrupulous people in that world of private lending. I've dealt with a couple of them before, buying actually land from them, which has always been interesting. But Dan, again, I like him. People that I've spoken to that have used him were very impressed. But we're going to be talking to him today about his advice to investors, buyers, and basically people looking to relocate to Costa Rica. As he said, he's a straight shooter. He was like, Rich, what things can I say and what things can't I say? I'm saying, say whatever you want, dude. That's the whole idea of this podcast, is to get information out there, to give people perspective, so they can make an informed decision, whatever that decision may be. Remember, guys, if you're looking to do anything here in Costa Rica, whether it's building, buying land, investing, relocating, we've actually had quite a few clients that we've helped relocate recently. I hired Anna in our office, who I've known for probably about 16 years. She's great. People love her. And she has a lot of knowledge of helping people relocate here, because we're actually building quite a few homes for people relocating here as well. So you can contact us, info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. But let's get straight into the podcast. Good morning, Dan. How you doing?
Hey, Richard, what's going on?
That's good, man. I really appreciate you. I know that you guys are very busy at the moment in the world of loans, and you just got back from Santa Teresa, but I appreciate you taking 30 minutes out of your day to join us here on the podcast and share some information with our listeners.
Thanks for having us. Just like you always like to share information, be open, and let people know what we see in the market.
Yeah, awesome. Well, the first question I'd love to ask is just kind of to get your opinion of, what's happening. What are you seeing happening in your business? How would you compare the last couple of months to the last couple of months last year, just so people that aren't here in Costa Rica can get an idea of kind of what's going on in the market?
Sure. So we do, whenever people think of lending, they immediately think of long-term mortgages and purchases. We have a slightly different focus for people who are already here in the country, have bank accounts, have businesses set up. If you have collateral, we loan against that, what we call hard money lending in the US or Canada. So a lot of what we were doing last year, we focus on businesses. We've got a lot of builders and developers that are our clients. So they would take, a house that they would already built, or maybe the house that they live on, and then they would use that as leverage in order to buy other land and build on it. That was a pretty common thing that was happening, and put up the right collateral and everything else, and we can definitely do that. What we're seeing differently now in this market are definitely signs of a slowing market. We've had several what we call rescue loans, which we only had one or two of last year. I'd say 30 to 40% are a rescue loan. We define a rescue loan as people have started to build and they're not quite able to finish. So we help them along that last part. As long as they have windows, doors, roof, and electrical, as long as it's an enclosed, safe structure, we can help them out with that last 10, 20% to finish it to live in or finish it to bring it to market. And we've had several of those. We've also got a lot more requests of people who have used up all of their cash and they don't have any more cash left. So maybe they need furnishings for their home. Maybe they need to actually pull some cash back out and live off that, some extra cash maybe for a pool. And then unfortunately, we're also starting to see instances where people bought homes, they put it on the market, they haven't been able to sell in time, and they need to pull a loan out to get some equity out of their property in Costa Rica. They move back to the US, Canada, Europe, whatever it is, and they just need some cash until it sells. So those, for me, are all signs that economies are slowing a bit and opportunities are changing. So instead of the growing, I think we're in the evening out stage, maybe a little bit of shrinking in the markets.
Yeah. No, I think we're seeing it globally. I was just looking, and I always read the UK news that like this is like the most, the slowest that houses, have been sold, in the past decade. Yeah. So, and I think we'll start to see that. And I mean, look, with these huge upswings, there's also, is going to be a slowdown that we've seen. So to be expected. We just sometimes just see a delay here in Costa Rica by, it can be 12 to 18 months. But I mean, I think as you said, like I personally like it because there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. But we've got to also be honest and recognize what the opportunities are and what they aren't, and
Yep.
look in the right places. And like you just say, when I wake up in the morning, a lot of times I look at Market Watch, and Market Watch said today that interest rates are the highest point that they've been in the last 23 years. I think it said mortgage rates and interest rates. And it's really important when you're in real estate in Costa Rica to understand that the real estate here, especially in the expat market, does follow US, Canada,
Yes.
Europe, and all the other major markets, because real estate is based on lending. Fundamentally, it's governments loaning to banks and banks loaning to either businesses or their end customers, and that grows economies, right? And those loans grow the economies. And if you can't make more money than you have to pay in lending, then the economy will slow down.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's always I'm look at the real estate side, the lending side, and also the tourism side as well, because the tourism, is a lot of what dictates the cash flow in this country. When it comes to having vacation rentals, hotels, tours, and kind of really gives an idea. I mean, the previous podcast that I did was with Barry Roberts, where we were just talking about, I don't think this country understands how important tourism is to it. And well, maybe the country does, but the government definitely doesn't, because, there's no focus, there's no, one of their pillars is not tourism, whereas it should be, because their GDP, is like, I think it's like 12 to 13% tourism, and indirectly it's like 24%, of the GDP is tourism. So, but anyway, like, when should someone, like, let's get into the loans a little bit here, just because I'm really interested in this topic, and I know a lot of people are. But like, when should someone not take a loan?
Don't take a loan. So we focus on businesses, and we advise people not to take loans if it's not a win-win deal all the way around. Right now, especially in this market, we want to make sure that the person who takes a loan is going to make more money with that loan. Yep. So we did just get back from Santa Teresa. We got 4 loans there, and all of those loans are cases where somebody's going to make more money with that loan. I'll give you just one example. A gentleman has 8 apartments. He's got more room to build. He's very smart that he's doing long-term rentals. We think in a lot of places, short-term rentals are oversaturated in the sense that not necessarily just by sheer numbers, but people they just think of numbers. They think they're just going to make more money, and they don't realize that they're in the hospitality business. And in order to make money in short-term rentals, you need to be very hospitality focused in order to beat out all the competition. So this particular gentleman he's already got 8 apartments. He wants to have a small loan to build 2 more. He's got I'd say a medium rent point to where it's accessible to high paid locals, as well as sort of the surfer crowd. So let's say $750 to $1,500 in rent, which is very accessible in Santa Teresa, still in a reasonable distance from town. And so even though private lending is expensive, whenever anybody, talks to us, oh, you're more expensive than a bank. Yes, we're more expensive than a bank. But also we're very fast. We'll get it done before high season for you. And, we're not going to BS you around. We're not going to drag you along, and we'll get it done very quickly, efficiently. And then we'll also help you get out of debt, right? So these are, if somebody is going to get themselves in trouble in a foreseeable future, we just sort of back away, and we say, I'm sorry, that's not what we deal in. You shouldn't be mortgaging your grandmother's house. If you're not able to pay other bills, you shouldn't be stacking more debt on top of that to pay bills that you can't cover. You should be reevaluating, a much larger picture as to why you can't pay other bills. So we tend to focus on that expat crowd, on good quality business people with good business plans, and we stay away from the more dangerous crowd that the market, say in San Jose, of Ticos who can't pay their bills. We don't service that crowd at all.
Well, I mean, you have I don't know whether the word would be fiduciary duty to your lender and also your borrower, right? But I mean,
Right.
whether it's not required, but you have it. And, that's why I always say that, Dan, you're welcome on the podcast anytime, because I think that you guys do consider both sides of this, because you're like, for the lender, does this make sense? Meaning, because the lender doesn't want the property. The lender doesn't want the foreclosure. Like, the lender wants their money back. And like, is the borrower, the right type of borrower that we want to deal with? Because ultimately, if it's not, it's coming back on you anyway.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no. So there are a lot of lenders that want the property. So there's a lot of sharks out there. The Costa Rica market's a very nasty market.
Yep.
And we're the very first people to tell everybody about that. And because it's so nasty, that's one of the reasons why we started our business, is because we wanted no part of that. And we saw that there was a good opportunity with high quality borrowers who were frustrated with banks, who maybe couldn't get lending based on location or certain characteristics. So it is very difficult, and we take sort of a family business approach to it. Carla and I are a couple, and we look at, we genuinely very much care about not only the lenders, but the borrowers, and they feel that immediately because we're super transparent with them. And we look at it as a family business and relationships as well. Strangely enough, so we're not only brokers, but we're also lenders, and we live off the interest off our loans. So we have a lot of our own money out on the streets as well. And one of the different things that we have that we're very proud of is that we're friends with the people who owe us a lot of money. We go to Santa Teresa, Nosara, Flamingo, Arenal, all the different places that we loan, and we call up the people who own us or owe us money, and we're like, hey, what's going on? Do you want to grab a coffee? Let's grab some dinner tonight. How's everything going? How can we help you out? And we have a good relationship with just about everybody, and there's no contention there. So we really care about those relationships. We care about everybody involved. It's not about the commission at all. Do we make commissions off it? Yeah, we do. But a commission, or the money that you make, is a byproduct of doing a good job. Yeah. What happens in the lending industry as a whole with our competition, we see, is people just they try anything they can to wedge themselves in the middle, or find difficult situations with their hands out, just trying to make a buck. And that's a very short-term way to think of it. You need to think long-term. What can I do long-term to be helpful and be valuable as a lender, a broker, a Airbnb owner, a real estate agent, whatever it is. So that's the approach that we take. That's different from the rest.
Let's talk about that value. What do you mean by that value?
So adding value is a big deal. A couple of weeks ago, when you and I had lunch, you asked me, you said, what is the biggest challenge that we were having? And I took a while, and I paused, and I thought about it. And I just had this one word in my head: value, right? And I was thinking about valuations of property, adding value in the marketplace. There's all sorts of parts where you need to make sure that you justify what you're being paid. So at the end of the day, what you're paying for a property, what you're getting from a loan, what commission you make as a real estate agent, it must pay for itself, right? In one way or another. If that's perceived or numerical, you need to make sure that you're adding value. So in our case, in the lending industry, it's complete transparency. You know who the lender is, you know who the borrower is. You can communicate with them at any time. Completely transparent. We hide nothing. We will structure loans in order to make sure that it's good, that the borrower can get out of it, and that the lender gets their money paid back. Yeah. We have no qualms about killing deals either. When we started out several years ago, I remember I had one lender in particular who was relatively new. I presented him a loan, and he said, hey, yeah, I like it. I'd like to add 1.5 points on top for me, and then since my time is valuable, I'd like to add $600 for my time to go to the bank and cut a check. I said, I don't think you understand our business plan. We don't do business like that. We're going to find another lender for this particular opportunity, and we won't take that. We will not allow anybody to get screwed in the transaction. If it's a bad deal for anybody, we kill it, right?
Yep.
In the lending business, that's adding value. When you are, say, a real estate agent, when you overprice properties, that's not adding value. When you misrepresent, what something could possibly be worth, if you hide information in any way, if you're not completely transparent, there's no value in that. So, people like Becky Clower, I don't know her personally, but I've heard every podcast that she's done with you. You can tell instantly in half an hour, on the podcast, that Becky Clower adds a lot of value. She knows the areas, she knows the laws, she speaks Spanish, she knows the municipalities, she knows all the water information. She knows the good, the bad, and she'll tell you about it. She will not let her customers get into a bad situation so she can make a quick buck. That is adding value. When you're in the loan business, so we travel quite a bit to all the beach areas, and we see a lot of the listings, we see a lot of the prices. And there's a couple that are, they're just ridiculous. People will have like a small prefab house. And as you know, when you value a home in Costa Rica, it's based on square meters. And those square meters are based on the area under the roof. In the US or Canada, probably the UK as well, I don't know. You value a home based on the inside climate controlled area, right? And then everything else is kind of extra. Here it's everything under a roof. And then they'll count pools as well. We don't do that. We will value, we'll go with an actual tape measure, right?
Yep.
We measure it. This is how you find value. And we know what the replacement values are on different types of properties. So we saw this prefab house. It was maybe 80 square meters with a giant roof on it. They were saying it was 130, 140 meters because of just the outside porch area. Total replacement value on this thing was no more than $120,000. And they're asking like $420,000. There's no value in that. It's quite obvious at that point that you're trying to take advantage of somebody who doesn't know. You're taking advantage of the greater fool, and you're not leaving any meat on the bone for the next person. So another good measure of value is, are you leaving some meat on the bone? Are you leaving some money on the table for the next person so they can make some money as well? If you sucked it so dry and placed the price so high that the next person is guaranteed to lose, there's no value in that. And you can do that numerically.
Well, I mean, you and I discussed that, because I do a lot of development myself with land and properties and stuff. And a lot of the time my clients end up buying it because I still leave meat on the bone. Like I'm not pricing it at like the high end of the market value to try and get as much out of it as possible. For me, it's like, I want to create win-win situations because again, it's karma, clients will refer other clients, but also it's just good practice. Like I couldn't sleep at night knowing that I've gouged someone. I couldn't do it.
Right. And that's unfortunately something that we're seeing very little of. So we're really familiar with the Flamingo, Tamarindo area. Flamingo for me is one of my favorite areas to go because it's got all the hobbies that I like. I'm kind of a water guy. I like to surf, spearfish. I like sailing. So Flamingo is really good for that. And we have a realtor friend there, and he has a chat, like a WhatsApp chat of just realtors in that area. There's 170 realtors in that area, right? 170. And that's probably not even all of them. 5 years ago, how many were there? 20 or 30? And most of those folks they're just hoping for a lottery type situation, right? They're hoping to find that person with money who will actually buy this property, and they somehow wedge themselves in the middle and they have their hand out hoping for some money to fall from the sky. That's not a good long-term business plan, and that doesn't add value, right? I think a lot of people in real estate now, if you're a builder, if you're a developer, if you're in your business, if you're in my business, if you're a real estate agent, you need to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself that question. How do I add value, and how will I add that value long term? And if you can't answer that question very quickly and very accurately, you either need to change your business plan or probably look for another business. I'd like to share some examples of people that we've met along the way that I think do add a lot of value to kind of give them some props.
Yeah, definitely.
And for all the people who I don't mention, there's a lot of people that add value, but these are just a few. So if I don't mention you, I still love you anyway.
But Dan, like, how do you identify if someone's adding value or not? Because a lot of people are coming down here like blind, if you know what I mean. And like everyone's very nice. Like, you know, I've had examples before of just like, oh, the builder was so nice. I met his family and then I gave him 50% and he disappeared. Like, you know, I mean, you know, I think we've all got like spider senses, you know, that kind of go off. But give us some examples and then help us like understand what you would do to figure out of like, does this person add value or not?
Have you had Matt Rosensteel on your show? Do you know who Matt is out of Funchal? Yeah. So we met Matt due to a loan. He had referred us to a client of his who was looking for a loan. I was somewhat negative on, so he's in Funchal. And I was somewhat negative or sort of neutral in that area. I didn't think it had a whole lot of potential. I didn't get it. The beach was kind of dark. I was just like, nah, I don't know, Funchal. I don't know if I really want a loan there, what the liquidity is. When I met Matt, he completely changed my mind about that area. He told me about the water and the water availability there.
Lots of it.
An enormous amount.
And for great infrastructure. Great infrastructure.
Exactly. Those are the things that I didn't know, even though I've been here 19 years. Those are things I didn't know about it.
Yep.
And you know, Funchal has some disadvantages. It's 45 minutes from a gas station. There's not a whole lot of other activities around. It's a little bit of a sleepy town, but there's certainly a market for that. And the price per square meter compared to, say, nearby Tamarindo is a fraction of the price. And so for a certain personality, if you meet certain qualities, and this is what you're looking for, Funchal is a very safe bet at a certain price point. And he's very transparent about what those price points are, right? He'll say, don't pay this, pay that. This is what it sold for a few years ago. This is what it's selling for now, right? And a lot of people will hide that information. He said, you know, these asking prices are too high. I don't think it's worth that much. If somebody wanted to buy it, they should offer this, right? And he's after that relationship. He wants to be the guy who is known in Funchal. He's the Funchal guy. And he's thinking 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And he will no doubt be the guy in Funchal.
Well, and his mentor is Larry Graciano, who lives in Negra, who very much did the similar thing, you know, up there. So that's why, I mean, you know, they work together. But no, I mean, I agree. Matt's got a long-term vision. He has a family. He lives in the community, you know, and we actually had Dave Matt, which is kind of weird with Matt Rosensteel, Dave Matt, who has a project there called the Alethea Project on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, who was exactly saying the same ththings about Funchal, of like, it's a beautiful beach, great water infrastructure, you know, asphalt roads the whole way from the Liberia airport. You know, I see the great future in that area.
Yeah, and thanks. So we did some loans there in, you know, nearby in Funchal, in Playa Negra. Based on a lot of the information that he gave us, we now feel a lot safer about loaning there because we know these are good, safe loans at certain prices and certain valuations, right? Yeah. And so that transparency and honesty is really important. On a slightly different point, but still in the expat market and still you know, having to do with real estate. So when we started going to Nosara, there's some guys that we stay with every single time. Jan and Ryan, they're clients of ours now. They're lenders as well. They've introduced us to multiple people. So they own a place called Casa Vitality in K section in Nosara, walking distance to the beach. And they came in, they bought this house and turned it into this beautiful home. And they do something that nobody else does. We stay at Airbnbs all the time. We stay at hotels all the time. These guys are the absolute best in Nosara, probably the whole country, because they do things a slightly different way and they do it at a reasonable price. So when you go there, they actually greet you and they make you feel like family instantly. Jan makes breakfast for everybody. He makes amazing, delicious breakfast like, you know, your best friend's grandmother would make. They want to know all about you. They make everybody feel very special. they do. I mean, it's like this beautiful home in K section that you can get for, cheaper than anywhere else in Nosara, but incredible service. And, they put you in a WhatsApp group. What do you need? Who can we refer you to? They haven't been here that long. I think maybe just a couple of years, but they know everybody in town. They'll say, go here, go here, go here. Don't go here, don't go here. Beware of these people, beware of these businesses, beware of, this. And they're super honest about it. There used to be crime in a decent amount of crime in K section. So there's a lot of building going on, and there's a lot of theft from the construction sites. And then, some of those same people they're stealing from construction sites would do some little minor break-ins around there.
Yep.
What did they do? They started a community watch program. So they got K section together. They got people on golf carts. They put up cameras. Ryan used to work in police and fire, so he knows about security and crime and those things. Not only are they adding value to their guests, they're adding value to their community. And then on top of that, Ryan tells me all the dirt about Nosara. And so he's also a buyer's agent in Nosara, and he'll tell me all this stuff. Don't buy here. There's a problem over there. And I've heard how he's dealt with some of his buyers. And he said, don't pay these prices. That thing over there, that's not worth 1.4 million. That's worth 0.4 million. Yeah. And he'll tell them, just unless you get a good price, don't even do it. And it's because they have that stability from their Airbnb, and they're good, safe, responsible guys who are good with their money. They can say those things, and they're not so concerned about their next commission check. They can be honest and transparent, do a great job, and they're going to be around even when the economy slows down 5, 10, 20 years in the future. Those guys are still going to be around if they want to be, because they've got the right approach and they've got the right business plans, and they add value.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned there about, something being 1.4 million and it being 0.4 million. I mean, what areas do you think are still overpriced?
Pretty much every expat area is overpriced in some way. Flamingo, Tamarindo, not Coco and Hermosa is still relatively well priced.
Coco and Hermosa have there's some pretty good value to be had there.
Yeah, there is. There's positives and negatives in each one of those. Nosara's overpriced. Santa Teresa's overpriced. Probably Southern Zone not as much, but
there is still some diamonds down there.
Yeah, there's still diamonds down there for sure. But there's diamonds kind of everywhere you go. Correct. If you know what to look for. So we did a loan last year for a gentleman that was doing fix and flips, right? So you find a place and you fix it up, make it pretty, and you can turn around and make a profit. And he did it he was doing it in Nosara, and I saw what he was doing. He had experience in Canada for being a contractor. He knew how to do it. And I used to think that fix and flips were not a good business plan in Costa Rica. They're not a good business plan in the Central Valley, generally speaking. Correct. But they're good business plan in the beach areas, especially if you can turn around and owner finance and back out. Yep. So there's definitely some opportunity there.
No, I mean, I've done it multiple times. My fund has gone in and bought places. We should close on one next week that we've done. I'm looking at the next one. I've actually done it a lot for clients, where we found something that's a little undervalued and being like, look, next door was a little bit done up and it sold for this. This one's at this value. I think we can get it cheaper. And then even with the rebuild, even with the remodel, it's going to be worth more than it is. But even if it wasn't, at the price you're getting it in the remodel, you could still make a good return on it, and you have a place to kind of come to Costa Rica and enjoy as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the areas. I live in Santana, which is semi-expat-y, right? Yep. There's some people there's a lot of very expensive homes here. It's hard to find a good value here as well. Some places in the Central Valley, you can do it. But I think there is a business plan, for people who want passive income, maybe yep. retirement income, buy a house, fix it, flip it, and then owner finance that out for several years and get a passive income stream. Yep. If you know how to do the financing correctly with a good lawyer, it's not a bad way to go.
Well, I mean, you mentioned a lawyer there, and it kind of goes into my next question here. It's like, how important is having a good team, and what should that team consist of?
absolutely crucial. It took me years to find a good lawyer. Now, luckily, we have about 3 or 4 that we rely on, depending on the location, if it's San Jose or Central Pacific or Guanacaste, whatever it is. Those people need to be very knowledgeable. Obviously, they need to have spent a lot of time in the country, if not be nationals. They need to have perfect English and Spanish. When somebody doesn't speak Spanish, your ears should go up pretty quickly. Either they haven't spent enough time here, or they haven't invested the effort in order to understand the system. It's very important to understand the system and how it works,
Yes.
not fight that system, right? We have a client we spoke to the other day, and he said, some people told me that I shouldn't get registered in SUHEF. And I was like, they told you what? You absolutely need to be in SUHEF. It opens all the doors. The banks almost won't deal with you unless you're in SUHEF.
Correct.
It won't move money for you unless you're in SUHEF. Whoever told you that, you probably, So you don't ever want anybody who fights the system. You're not going to win. The system's going to win. So you need to make sure that your advisors, if it's an attorney, if it's an accountant, if it's a real estate agent, whoever it is, they understand the system. They understand Spanish. They understand the way that the rules and the governance works, and especially the banking, and they work within that, and they know how to do that. A lot of times there's a lot of foundational part. If you want to do business here long term, you need to get that foundation down. You need your banking, you need your businesses set up. You need to get registered in Hacienda. You need to pay your taxes. You need to understand how all these businesses work. You need to be able to log into the registry and find all this information and download your documentation. If you don't know how to do that stuff, you're at a severe disadvantage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, definitely an accountant and lawyer in this country is essential, one that has experience,
Yes.
And then depending on what your project is, and I think it is true. The individual should speak perfect Spanish, because you're going to need it to navigate that system and know all the intricacies of it, and don't fight it. There is no way you're going to win. It's like swimming against the current. Don't do it. Just float downstream with the current. Just don't fight it. Just go with it.
Exactly. The more you fight it, the sooner,
you'll drown.
You'll
drown.
Exactly. You drown and you got to go back home.
That's it.
Yep.
So, where do you think the economy, we've kind of touched on this, but where do you think it's heading, and where do you think opportunities that there are for expats in Costa Rica?
The world economy as a whole, the governments, let's be honest, the governments are sort of in control of it in the interest rates. Yep. And the higher the interest rates are, the higher the cost of borrowing, the more it slows down business. It is slowing down. It's going to slow down. It kind of has to slow down. And in a way, that's a good thing, because it brings us back to normality. We can't have inflation and sky high prices forever, right? And people's ability to borrow at a reasonable price will directly affect their investment. It's going to slow down. They seem to be doing a relatively good job of making sure that it's relatively stable. So we're going to have to go back to, it's not going to be so easy anymore. This whole way of, where I buy a piece of land, or I buy a property, and then 6 months later I can sell it for a 50% profit. That's over, right? You need to, again, go back to the adding value conversation. You need to somehow add value in the equation. If that's a fix and flip, if that's adding a service, there are always opportunities here or anywhere else. If you understand Costa Rica, understand how it works, you can make money here. A thought that I had, correct me if I'm wrong on this one. I thought about it. For me, it's hard to find a good electrician. Well, what about
and that's because there's
electrical contractor.
Yeah, because usually you have electrical engineers and construction guys. There are no electricians, if that makes sense, in Costa Rica. You have construction guys that will pull wires through and may put your house, put it all together in your house, but may burn down your house. So the electrical engineer needs to come in and check that, but there's no trade school. There's no electrical trade school. You're an engineer or you're a construction worker. That's it.
Right. The electrical work that you see here is horrible. And so if a good electrician wants to come here and start a good high quality, teach people, train people, put the correct 3M caps on it. Don't just tape together high voltage wires. there's a big opportunity there, right?
I agree.
I think there's opportunities with also look for things that are inefficient. Real estate brokerage and it is inefficient. Lending is inefficient. So, people charge, we have the lowest prices probably of anybody based on those inefficiencies. People charge way too much for what they offer. We're full service for a relatively low price, and other people are basically no service just for introducing to people, and they charge a premium price. Even cars. I was looking at cars the other day, and this car dealer, as soon as they had a very high price, and I said, didn't you another car here, this an almost identical car, sell for 20% less? Oh yeah, it did. And instantly they dropped the price by 20%. They're absolutely price gouging. And that was a Tico price as well. So there's a lot of places where you can add value, have a higher quality product or service at a reasonable price. They're all over the place if you want to put the effort in.
Yeah, no, they are. I mean, I don't know how we got into it, but we've been helping clients buy cars by sending mechanics out and just help them. It's not what we do at all. I just can't see anyone get screwed. Like on my watch, no one's getting screwed, dude. So Dan, I mean, I think the question that everyone probably is going to have though, if they're interested in loans, is what's going to be the percentage, my interest payment? What percentage is going to be the interest?
So we do things a little bit differently. So getting a loan or borrowing money in Costa Rica is always going to be more expensive than the US, Canada, or Europe. Always. We tell everybody that right from the very beginning. If you have access to capital, US, Canada, or US, use that before you come to us. We try to be competitive with US private lending rates. Now, a lot of times that gets confused with standard mortgage rates. They're two entirely different things with two entirely different purposes. Standard mortgage rates right now in the US are 30-year fixed, probably around 8%, right? Private lending rates are closer to 12%. What's the difference? The difference is we're shorter term. It's going to be interest only, and it's meant to be paid off quickly. That 12% is actually not too far off from banks.
From banks here in Costa Rica.
Banks here in Costa Rica, right?
Yep.
It's not bad at all. But what we tell, and it sounds strange, people are like 12, oh my gosh. We're preferred members at BAC, and they contacted me the other day, and I just kind of went through the process. I was like, hey, yeah, I might be interested. What are your rates like? Of course, I'm
oh my God,
trying to get information. And, I averaged it out over 5 years, and it was 11.5% was what a standard mortgage, amortized mortgage was going to cost. So we're not too far from banks, but they have prepayment penalties of 3, 4, 5 years, right? So if you only need to borrow money for 1, 2, or 3 years, that's not a very good option because you're going to get penalized. You're going to wind up paying more than you would through us. A lot of our competitors are 14, 15% plus. But we're about 12-ish, and people are like, hey, you can charge more. Well, yes, we can, but at the same time, the way that we look at it is, if you're making 12% on your money as an investor, those are Warren Buffett type numbers, right? And that way we have our personal loans structured through a corporation, that's net. I'm netting 12%, which is like making 15% taxable. Those are very good returns. It's consistent and it's collateralized and it's really quite safe. So we tell our lenders, if you can find a better deal than that in bonds or stocks or real estate or whatever, or in something passive, go for it. That's where we are. And I follow stocks and world markets relatively closely. And to my knowledge, you can't get close to that in returns. So that's about where we like to be. Now that's in beautiful houses. If you know the Cocoon House in Tamarindo, a big $3 million house, we loaned on that. Ocean view, perfectly everything nice. Completed around 12%. If you have a location that's less desirable, if maybe it's a rescue loan and the house isn't completed, the interest rates are going to be a little bit higher to compensate for that risk of non-completion or location. But we make it to where you're only paying interest for a year, and they're like, okay, how are you going to start paying down the principal after that? We want you to work down that principal. We want to get you out of debt, and we want to get you, everybody happy and get the lender paid back as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you said it is you don't actually want the property, you want the loan paid back. Like it's a win-win for everyone. We're not looking for win-lose situations here. It's win-win.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, well, my last question for you, Dan, is I'm sure I've kept you long enough. I mean, if you inherited or, came into $500,000 and had to invest it here in Costa Rica in something, what would you invest it into and why?
Of course, loans.
Apart from lending, of course. Yeah, that one's.
Apart from lending, I would look for inefficiencies in services. I would look for overpriced services and then hire people based on that. And, if I were an electrician, I'm not going to do this because we're focused only on what we do. If I were an electrician or somebody who understood building or something like that, I would probably start an electrician's school, get a very good team of high quality electricians and do electrical contracting all over the country and make a very good brand, a very good name. That's not the only industry where you can do that, where I see a gap in the market. But something along those lines, where it's either not well served, they don't do a very good job, or something's overpriced. I would be looking for those opportunities.
I mean, look, I think it just comes down to here being in Costa Rica is, the saying that I always say, hay plata en el calle, there's money in the street.
Yeah.
Like you just need to put the feelers out, involve yourself in a lot of stuff, ask a lot of questions, and these opportunities you will just see them very easily. Yeah.
Or the fix and flips too. I would start looking for older, dilapidated houses that already have structure, legal water, all that other stuff.
Yep.
And you're able to fix them at a reasonable price, maybe just outside some of the hot spots.
Yep.
And just outside some of the hot spots, there's a lot of opportunity. So instead of right in Santa Teresa, there's really nice areas 20, 30 minutes from there, right? That's what I would be looking at.
Awesome. Well, Dan, it's an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking time to join us on the podcast. Anyone that wants to get in contact with Dan, I'll put all of his contact details in the description, but really appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks, Richard.
No worries. Have a great day.
You too. Bye now.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed that podcast there with Dan Chaput. As you can see there, Dan doesn't really hold back, especially when it comes to people adding value and people that don't add value. So, I mean, I think it's just really important to question that here in Costa Rica, of when you're dealing with people, of like just asking them questions and really seeing, there are spider senses that you have. It's just amazing though sometimes how people just ignore those spider senses here in Costa Rica because they think like it's a cool paradise. But, it's a beautiful country. You can do magical things here. It's just, you just need to be very careful. So, I mean, I think as Dan said there, having a great team, and especially a lawyer, and then at some point an accountant, if you have a working cash flow business is very important as well. So remember, you can reach out to us for any of your needs there, guys. info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. I'll not keep you any longer. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please give us a review. Please, I think on some platforms you can write a review, give us 5 stars, pass the pod. My goal here is just get as much information out there as possible, and help people kind of on their journey here in Costa Rica if it's necessary. So we have a whole team of people here, engineers, project managers, relocation specialists here in our office. Trying to not let the company get too big, just so that I'm able to kind of be out there kind of in the field, rather than in HR and finance and operations, which is something that I can do, but it's not something I particularly enjoy. I did it for many years. So, but yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.